The Spin-off Podcast Network.
Are you making the most of your KiwiSaver investment? Generate is an award-winning KiwiSaver provider with a track record of strong long-term performance. Making a smart decision now could add tens of thousands of dollars by the time you reach retirement. Book a no-obligation chat with a Generate KiwiSaver advisor today at generatekiwisaver.co.nz/get-advice. A copy of the product disclosure statement is available at generatekiwisaver.co.nz. The issuer of the scheme is Generate Investment Management Limited, and of course, past performance does not guarantee future returns.
I'm Toby Manhire, and this is Juggernaut, the story of the Fourth Labour Government, a podcast in 6 parts.
Doesn't give my opponents much time to run up to an election, does it?
This nation is at risk.
What do you think you're up to now, you perverted little liar?
I could smell the uranium on it as you lean towards it.
There's a radical overhaul in the history of New Zealand's administration.
Juggernaut, the story of the Fourth Labour Government, made with the support of New Zealand On Air. Listen now on the Spin-off or wherever you get your podcasts. Kia ora tātou, this is Toby Manhire with another episode of your friendly local politics podcast, Gone by Lunchtime. What you're about to hear is part of the Gone by Lunchtime Megapod, a 12-hour epic event recorded on September 20 at Spin-off HQ. Enjoy. Kia ora tātou, welcome back to the Megapod. We've got a full studio here, it's very exciting. I'm Toby Manhire. We're going to debate. This is first and only debate. I tried to get a tamaki debate go along, but didn't have any luck with that. So, look, we've got a lot to squeeze in. Maybe we can zip around the table, do introductions, tell me your name, your favourite political TV show, whether it's a House of Cards or a Thick of It or whatever, and the place you would take a visitor to Auckland from Tasmania.
Tasmania?
Yep, Tasmania.
Okay.
On what day is it today? On a Wednesday evening. Mahesh, do you want to go first?
West Wing, probably watched it 8 times, the whole package.
Really?
Yep.
You're a big West Wing head.
Huge.
Okay.
Bastion Point.
Okay.
Yeah, on the way to Mission Bay.
Yeah.
Just a great vistage. Yeah, those two. Mahesh, Auckland Central candidate, National Party.
Thanks, Mahesh.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Oscar Sims. I'm the Labour candidate. I would take so my TV show would be Yes Minister. I think there's absurdity in politics. I think the show captures that. And I would take a visitor up one of the volcanoes, especially on a day like today, which is beautiful. It's sunglasses weather for the first time this year.
Nice. Chloe.
Kia ora, my name is Chlöe Swarbrick, Green MP for Auckland Central. From Tasmania, Toby, I was going to go Aotea Great Barrier Island, but then you gave me Wednesday evening. So I do what I did over the weekend with my friends Lewis and Tom, which is take them to Aki, phenomenal Korean restaurant run by Paulie and his wife on Ponsonby Road, and then to Ponsonby Pool Hall. And if the TV shows, you know full well that I'm annoying and earnest and would say everything is political, so I'd say Seinfeld, but for an actual political one, I'd say the thick of it. Look at Kramer, you know.
So you're going to say Q&A or something. That would be desperate nerd territory. Okay, we're asking everyone 3 questions. One of them was the political TV show. The other 2, first quickly, do you want to predict the turnout for the election as a whole? There's going to be a box of chocolate fish for the winner of this. Mahesh, what do you reckon?
76.3.
76.3, interesting, good. Oscar?
77.
77, flat 77. Chloe?
Oscar just straight out stole my one, so I go 77.5.
77.
Yeah, we did. And we were looking actually at the lowest turnout of recent history, and it was 2011 with 74.2.
That's right. Do you know what the third question that you're going to be asked about is? The third question is about Mojo, because Christopher Luxon has made this the Mojo campaign. He uses the word a lot. And we thought, because the issue is about it being lost and looking for it, the great Mojo hunt of 2023. I want to know what you all personally, where you would put your own level of Mojo right at this moment, from a scale of 0 being no Mojo. You've lost your Mojo. It's all gone. 10 to being absolutely full of Mojo, just coming out your ears. Mahesh, would you like to go first?
Yeah, it'd be an easy 10, for sure.
10?
Let's go.
Wow. Oscar?
Yeah, it's been a lifelong dream of mine to be on Gone by Lunchtime. It's my favourite political podcast and the greatest political podcast in the country. So, of course, a 10.
Right, okay.
And I was saying to your team out there before, look, if I can get the millennial vote, it's over 9,000. But we'll go for 10. We had a solid turnout to the campaign office. Just the stuffing letters the other day.
But like the leaders last night both said 8 when they were asked to rank their, it's everyone kind of errs towards that sort of, you couldn't then go 3.
It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, Toby.
Yeah, I guess it does. Hey, what time is it? 11:35. Part of me is tempted to just leave the room and leave you guys to it, because did you watch last night's debate? There's this kind of things that sort of go in between the moderator. It's hard, and kind of is this 2 interviews or is and then it's just people interjecting and shouting at each other. So I'm kind of tempted to just leave you guys to it, but I might do that in a minute. I'll start off with something at least, rather than going complete gonzo at this stage. Mahesh.
Yep.
RNZ recently interviewed some of the members of the audience after a debate you guys had done. And one of the members of the audience, slightly grumpy chap, said he was suspicious of you because you appeared to have flown in from Silicon Valley. Did you hear this? And probably drive a Ferrari.
Yeah, man.
Are either of those things true?
No, neither of those things are true. The last time I had a Ferrari in my hand was my mum, when the only thing we could afford as toys was she used to buy me this Matchbox, those Matchbox Ferrari cars.
Okay.
That's the only
What do you
time.
drive now?
A Tesla.
Of course you drive a Tesla. Of course you drive a Tesla. Not Silicon Valley, but you have done work in sort of startup area.
And the Tesla was the first-hand car I've ever bought. I was one of the first leaders at Canva. Right?
Yeah.
Canva's a tool that millions of people use every day. So we were 20 people, and today it's 4,000 people. Right. So, it's been a huge journey of mine to do that. It was an interesting quip that person made. I came from a low socioeconomic background. When I used to go back to India, often I used to see kids who look like me break rocks for a living. So that the facade that someone who works on tech or tries to get entrepreneurship going is flown in. Maybe it's because my accent sounds like I watched a lot of Sesame Street, which is exactly the reason why I've watched that accent. But yeah, that was an interesting quote.
Sesame Street. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Oscar, do you think Chloe's done a good job, Stu?
Yeah, not bad, but I think we need
not
someone
good enough though. You don't want to unseat her.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need someone who's locally focused, who's laser focused on local issues in Auckland Central. Chloe is the spokesperson for the Green Party for a lot of different things. And when we elect a progressive government on October 14th, she's going to be even more focused on those other things. And so I can step in and take over that local advocacy role here in Auckland Central.
You're 25 years old, is that right?
That's correct, yes.
Do you think that Chlöe Swarbrick is over the hill?
No. No, I think it's good that we have, a relatively young suite of candidates here standing in Auckland Central. It's the youngest seat in the country. But yeah, I mean, I guess I would be the first member of Gen Z if successful in this election, so that would be interesting.
Or Tampol,
Or Tampol, or I believe Te Pāti Māori have a candidate who's also
Hannah,
young.
she's
Hannah,
That's right. Do you want to answer that, Chloe? You're number 3 on the green list. You've taken on the role of speaking to a range of topics. You've got an important leadership role in the party, however the cards fall after the election. Why don't you focus on that rather than why do you want the electorate seat as well?
I got to say, firstly, I really don't understand the attacks from both Oscar and Mahesh on that point, because they simultaneously seem to say that I'm doing too much, but also that I'm doing too little. And I think that we really have to grapple with the cognitive dissonance there. But secondly, I would say that to the other point that everybody has been raising throughout this election campaign, and actually Mayor Wayne Brown has been putting on the record, when Auckland succeeds, Aotearoa New Zealand succeeds. So the fact that I have high-profile spokesperson roles for the party and I elevate those issues to the House of Parliament, but also that I can link them back through to constituency issues, I think is of massive benefit. And I also think that it's helped to consistently put Auckland Central on the map. And I would also just reflect on the fact that we had the Honourable Nikki Kay for a decade, who also played the role of a cabinet minister whilst amply representing Auckland Central. So, yeah, I mean, whether you're looking at the work that we've done throughout COVID-19 and extending small business supports and also to help those who are suffering through commercial rent negotiations, whether you look at the response to the Auckland anniversary flooding and Cyclone Gabrielle, whether you look at the day-to-day work that I've done with constituents on immigration issues and on housing, whether it's, supporting the likes of Sunday Blessings, Alan Melville to become a more sustainable outfit, which then became the hub for Auckland anniversary floods, whether you look at the St James, whether you look at the advocacy for Waiheke and Aotea Great Barrier Island. I'm very proud of the work that I've done on the ground, working with constituents and collaborating with community to actually redistribute power.
Sorry,
you mentioned Wayne Brown. We'll come back to you on this, Mahesh. Maybe you can find a way to weave this in. Wayne Brown, who sort of looms across lots of the issues in Auckland. Obviously, Auckland Central is just a part of it, but it's the central part of it. It's a really important part of it.
It's where we both live.
Right. Well, and Wayne Brown is, and I mean, he hasn't yet popped over any fences angrily to interject, but he's here with us in a very real sense. How would you rate, Mahesh, Wayne Brown's performance? Maybe give us a rank out of 10.
It's probably about 7.
About a 7?
7, and to Chloe's point, there's never been a comment by me about doing too much, doing too little. The commentary is about the state of the city, right? And Auckland Central has been rife with crime. Business owners are nervous and anxious. People are nervous about going to work. Social housing has not worked to the levels it needs to in Auckland Central. A range of different issues. The economy in Auckland Central is not functioning the way it should. And it's a commentary on why aren't we talking about these issues and why aren't we addressing them full on, head on.
Okay, we'll come back. Yeah. We'll come back to a lot of that content.
Looking forward to it.
Oscar, Wayne Brown. Out of 10?
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with Mahesh, actually. I think it's like a 6 or a 7. He needs some work on his crisis communication.
This is like Chris and Chris all over again. You guys,
well, sure.
Chlöe Swarbrick.
Exactly right.
We're gonna attribute just honestly arbitrary numbers to this. So why not just say 7 for the sake of it? But it all honestly, it just all boils down to the relationship and the spaces where we are able to get consensus on the issues. And I think no one's ever going to have to guess what Wayne or I are thinking, and we're very forthright with each other about that.
Right.
But also on the areas where we can get consensus, we do move forward.
And what about he recently put out, was it a manifesto or something? Something
manifesto.
It seems to me a useful addition to an election campaign to have the mayor of your biggest city saying this is what we need. One of the things he said he needed was money. Mm-hmm. He said $47 million a year for Crown property exempt from local body rates, and he wants more money for partnerships for infrastructure. Basically, cough up some more cash. Do you guys go along with that? Are you like, yes, I'm on the Wayne train on that?
You might remember a 22-year-old Auckland mayoralty candidate in 2016 saying precisely the same thing. So yes, at a baseline, agree with the principle that there needs to be revenue sharing. We had the local government, Future of Local Government review, which said exactly the same thing only a few months ago. We also, last term in Parliament, had a review of the Shannon inquiry from 15 years ago, which said exactly the same thing. Prodcom said the same thing again. And the OECD, the average amount of spending that occurs proportional at a local government level was around 30% here in Aotearoa in New Zealand. It's less than half of that at 11%, and that is a real limitation on the things that we can expect of our local government. So we do need to heed those calls from the experts that we keep commissioning advice from and then ignoring.
Oscar, you on board with that too?
Broadly, I mean, I think it's the biggest local government area in the Southern Hemisphere, right, geographically. This huge amalgamation that was undertaken by the national government, and it needs to be working, and it's clearly not working for people at the moment. I mean, you look at things like Auckland Transport. The friendly bus driver had to let me on this morning because I couldn't tag on because I had no money on my hop card because we've apparently been hacked. So, clearly there's things in local government that need to work better and are currently not working as well as they should be.
100%. I mean, philosophically, the National Party is the party amongst the three people here that believes in decentralization versus centralization, right? So we want to pass power. We want to pass power. We want to pass power. We want to pass power back to communities. And if you look at our recent housing for
as the Auckland super city, or do you mean devolving power further than that?
Devolving power from the centre to local government, to local council, to communities, and the range of different policies that we've come up with showcase that as well. And also, very importantly, working with private sector, unlike the Labour and Greens, right? So we want to make sure the housing for growth policy is set up with revenue share and working in private sector. The the infrastructure and roading policy is exactly the same. We have set in stone that we will work with community organizations, private organizations. So absolutely. And to your question earlier, I think Auckland Central is well served with a National Party MP, just like Nikki Kay, as Chloe called out, in a National Party-led government, therefore being able to make even more drive and more push for this area.
Do you find it hard staying optimistic with all the financial news in the media? I'm Bernard Hickey, and on my podcast, When the Facts Change, I'm here to help you navigate the ever-changing landscape of economics in Aotearoa. So join the conversation every Friday on When the Facts Change, brought to you by the Spin-Off Podcast Network in partnership with KiwiBit.
Are you curious about how business can be better? I'm Simon Pound, and I host Business is Boring, a podcast where I kōrero with some of the most interesting people in entrepreneurship, commerce, and making things happen. Tune in to Business is Boring every Tuesday, brought to you by the Spin-Off Podcast Network in partnership with Spark Business Lab.
Okay, you talked about transport, Oscar. Let's talk about, why don't you talk about, I'm going to go. I want you guys to have a conversation and see if you can have a constructive conversation, disagree with each other agreeably if you can.
This is an interesting
social experiment.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to leave the room. I don't even need to go to the
interesting.
bathroom. I was going to pretend I did, but I don't. I just think it's interesting. I'm kind of interested in the, methodology of debates, how they work. I would like to see you guys. You have to judge yourself whether you're talking too much, whether you sound like a prat, whether you're sounding too bellicose, whether you're doing too many talking points. Well, we can judge and find out. Okay, transport, you kick us off, Oscar. Defend Labour's record on transport, because there's a lot of things that seem to be cast out way into the future. There's a lot of not happening with light rail. There's a lot of not happening with harbour crossings. Defend Labour's record across the last 6 years on transport?
Look, we have made bigger investments in transport, and you had Michael Wood on earlier. He's really just leaving the room. You had Michael Wood on earlier to talk about our record on these issues, right? We have for the first time a program of rapid transit and building a rapid transit network in Auckland, and that's things like the Northern Busway extension, that's things like the Eastern Busway. We want to do Northwest as well now. So building that comprehensive rapid transit network in Auckland is really important to get people moving.
Can I ask you a question?
I rely on the bus, so this is something I'm deeply invested in.
I think we're both of us don't own a car, right?
That's correct.
Just like 30% of those who live in Auckland Central.
That's right, yeah.
So to that effect, do you think that we can squeeze more cars, more metal boxes into a finite space, i.e. the city centre?
No, I don't.
Okay, so then you would agree with the
both
business
of our
case.
parties and his party agree that we need congestion charging.
Sorry,
but I'm not talking about congestion
we're
charging.
talking about defending. Yes, why don't we just say
This is just going to become you two grilling me.
Why don't you just own up to the fact that there were a lot of challenges? Like the current Labour government didn't deliver on so many things. Right? Why don't you just say that, and then we can move on.
We have said that. I mean, Michael said that.
Just say it. Why don't you say it? Like
Yeah.
you just say it. There were so many projects that you went out and said that you were going to deliver, and that ended up being a huge waste of money, resource, all of that.
We had to start again in 2021 with things like light rail, and I think we've accepted that. We wanted to do more on these issues, and we haven't done that.
Cool.
I think it's fair to own up to that and say, look, the events of the last 6 years have brought a lot of crises to this country, and delivering these sorts of things has been difficult. And delivering big infrastructure projects in New Zealand in general, I think, has been difficult.
Yeah.
And there's structural reform. I think we can probably reach consensus on this, that there's structural reform that's needed in that space to make sure that we deliver these projects. So let's talk about transport.
Let's talk about the different ideas on transport.
So, Mahesh, would you agree with the notion that all of the experts agree on of induced congestion?
I believe that we should have congestion pricing, and I believe that we need to reduce congestion. Absolutely.
I was talking about induced congestion, which is the phenomenon whereby if you continue to build solely for the mode of private cars, then you continue to induce only
that's not
private
fair.
cars.
That's totally not fair. We were talking about, and that's just, you're taking a small little context and then extrapolating that to a whole country.
I'm talking about the philosophy and the literal expert consensus on a notion
Are you
called
talking about
induced
that,
congestion.
applying that to New Zealand, the whole of New Zealand? Is that when you talk about a philosophy, you want to apply it to a certain context, right? So which context are you choosing to apply this to Auckland City, to the whole of New Zealand?
Transport planners would say that regardless of cultural difference across jurisdictions everywhere in the world, that when you build solely for one mode of transportation, then you induce congestion on that mode of transportation, i.e. roads. So it's simply an expert opinion as to what applying.
Sure.
The evidence is pretty clear.
You also have to state, when you apply a philosophy, when you apply an ideology, it has to be applied in a pragmatic, practical way. So correspondingly, if say a place has never had roads before, so you put roads first, then at some point you put public transport in. So a staging in regards to what happens where.
Yeah, but
so
we have roads in Tamaki Makaurau. I guess my point is
our roads are pretty terrible right now.
Absolutely,
right?
and
so they need
one
to get
of
fixed.
the major reasons that our roads are terrible is because we continue to really only enable people to get around on those roads by virtue of a private vehicle, and we continue
it's also
to put
because
our
we
freight
haven't reinvested into our roads.
Well, again, if you were to look at actually the data and the facts, over the last 6 years, the Labour government has actually massively increased the amount of funding that goes towards, for example, filling potholes.
I mean that's a commentary on their capacity to actually deliver on projects, right? Like, so even if you spend a lot of money, say you spend so much money on mental health care, spend a lot of just spending money without getting outcomes is not.
My point is how we get to the outcome of enabling more people to get around the city in a more effective manner.
Absolutely.
And that requires us to reflect on international expert advice, which is that we currently have a situation here, particularly in Tamaki Makaurau, where half of our emissions profile come from transport. That's disproportionately because we have built for the private vehicle. We continue sprawl, which your party's back down from the housing enabling legislation will enable more of. So my point is, if we can all agree on what the evidence says, which is that you induce congestion when you solely rely on building roads disproportionately, then hopefully we can come to the consensus for the outcome of how we get people around the city better.
Can I jump in here?
That's the argument. That's the argument. That's the easy marketing ploy around.
This is not a marketing ploy. It's evidence, mate.
That's exactly it. When you say evidence-based and there's an ideology and you go, hey, there's evidence for this ideology. Yes, but then when and how you planned out is also research-based and evidence-based. When you take an ideology and you have to apply it in the right context.
You guys have no evidence behind your transport policy, let alone the costings of No, when you look at carbon emissions, you have your leader on the record on that.
We need more roads to get from one place in New Zealand to another place in New Zealand.
We're talking about Tamaki Makaurau. We're talking about the central city here. We cannot fit more cars into the central city. So the single most important thing for Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland City, is getting the City Rail project done on time and well scoped. That will have a huge impact in regards to our bus lanes. So let's get that right first. You know, when you express an ideology and then you don't prioritize properly. So let's just get the City Rail project done first. Let's see how that changes traffic and how things go. And then let's make the next layer. One of the issues over the last 3 to 6 years is an ideology coming through and the hurt and pain that Auckland City and Auckland Central has faced because we haven't staged our priorities properly. There are cycleways going nowhere. There have been red cones all over the place. There have been projects that haven't been delivered on time. And people understand this and appreciate this.
Can I make a bigger point here?
To change legislation around traffic management plans.
Apparently that was great. I saw some of the comments are really good. It's interesting. People are loving it. People love it. So
I'd wish that we could get more to the objective facts of the situation. But anyway,
Oscar, can you just say, because it looks like you were
bursting.
I'm bursting. I know.
Throwing up a flare into the sky for help. Have a quick say on this and then we'll move on to something else.
Yeah, so I mean, I think there's a bigger point here about like delivery of public projects, right? And I know that Mahesh comes from a technology industry background, which is where I come from. And there's this whole culture of move fast and break things when you work in startups, like I have and like Mahesh has. And that isn't the same sort of thing that you can apply to public policy making and to government. You know, these are two different beasts. Moving the ship of state, steering the ship of state is, I think, a lot more complex and difficult and requires a lot more buy-in from stakeholders and consultation than simply going, you know, let's just be for outcomes focused, let's just do this. So, you know, like I accept that there is more work to do in government and making things more agile, but I think we can't just throw out democracy.
Sorry, nobody's throwing out democracy. Great policy is actually done lean. You go in, you understand the problem, you problem scope incredibly well. Instead of just coming out with ideology, you understand the problem. And then you go, okay, so what needs to change? And then you test it a little bit. And then you extrapolate it and scale it up.
Okay, but there is a fundamental inconsistency from the proposition from Mahesh and from the National Party broader, which is that there needs to be this tolerance for risk and devolution of power to, for example, local government. But then they oppose things that Auckland Transport is doing in terms of cycleways and pedestrianisation projects, which are precisely what localised decision-making looks like. So we have to grapple with that cognitive dissonance.
I mean, I live in the city centre. I'm sick of consultation. I'm sick of getting letters in my mailbox about how we should be doing this project.
Let's talk about another area which is really important for Auckland Central. Very, very high renting population, more intensified housing than most parts of the country. It probably would be. I think Epsom is the most intensified and the most densely populated.
Yeah, technically, because it doesn't include the Gulf Islands.
Because you've got barriers.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Is if you're to look at the area that has the highest density, it is the 45,000 people who live within the motorway boundaries.
So let's talk about housing. Mahesh, hand on heart, when the National Party, we had this kind of very rare cross-party agreement about what's called the MPSUD thing, about how there would be, how we would move to, you know, people in the National Party, people across the board said we need to address this staggering issue.
Shout out to Judith and Nicola for that.
Judith Collins. She's had, this is like the third mention of Judith Collins. She's here too. She's here.
She's omnipresent.
The angry fence man is here. Wayne's here. Was there part of you that felt a little part of you inside die that was you're a young urban innovator that wants to see a city in Auckland that looks like one of those cool cities that you visited overseas?
Yeah, I no, because, and I think, again, this is marketing spin from the other side. We are building for growth. We are, in our clear policy, housing for growth policy, we absolutely want intensification in the right places, right near the travel corridors. Now, where does this, and that is exactly, that is exactly what the policy says. We're going to, absolutely does. Absolutely does. A housing for growth. So I see where the statements around a lack of evidence. I'm giving you the evidence and I'm giving you the facts. So
no,
here it is.
When
so
the
housing for growth intensification policy is about intensification near the travelling corridor. So that hasn't changed. What has changed is the devolution of power for Auckland City and Auckland Council. This is where that limited power piece comes in. We are telling local council and local government, because we had so much feedback from local council and local government saying that we want more power in regards to where we build. So we said, okay, we're going to set some targets, and you've got 30 years, we've got 10 years, you've got to hit those targets, and we're going to incentivize you to build. Right? So this actually builds now. So we will get the intensification in Auckland City Centre and West Haven and Wynyard Quarter.
Thank you. Oscar,
so we already have enabled capacity, and we already have more enabled capacity than what the National Party
under the unitary plan.
Under the unitary plan, which has been in effect since 2016. So this is a reversion to what we had before. I think the issue is that local councils don't want to do this. That we have to bring them along with us, of course, and we have to make sure that communities are involved. But the status quo ante has been foot dragging by local authorities on this issue, and I think this is one of the key things for me, and why I'm passionate about this election and about politics and about the Labour Party winning this election. Is there is a real difference between the parties on housing policy. We want to build more houses, and we want to build more houses in the right places, and we want to build a compact urban form. We want to make sure that people who are younger, people in my generation and people in Chloe's generation, can afford houses. Because you heard last night that the two leaders were able to buy houses before they were
20s.
in the early 20s, right? I mean, that's not even a remote possibility for me, and I have a much better job than parliamentary staff or whatever it was that they were doing at their age.
Chloe.
I mean, I agree with Oscar's point around the fact that we already within the unitary plan have all of the kind of units of housing that are currently scoped and available under the National Party's proposition. And to put it really clearly on the record, I just cannot understand for the life of me that back down unless you look at it most charitably through the lens of them trying to look at marginal seats and going, we win a few votes.
My goodness.
Or potentially, actually, given the...
Winning votes is a pretty important part of any election.
Absolutely, but so's leadership, so's vision, so is bringing people along with you and being really clear about what, again, the international and domestic evidence says about how we do density and how we do it well. So to that effect, when we're talking about building housing in the right places and also building up green infrastructure and otherwise, you only need to look at the Green Party's supplementary order papers on the housing enabling legislation, which actually both the Labour and the National Party voted down because of just how tentative that agreement actually was. And then, only a year or so later, when we had new National Party leadership looking at the numbers, I'm sure across those marginal electorates, they had that back down. And I can't interpret it any way other than just, frankly, cowardice. And it's gutting to me because it means that something which was really important in terms of bipartisan accord for density in this country, particularly in our Tier 1 cities, was backed down upon for sake of the politics of the day.
Well, very quick response there.
I mean, it's really unfortunate when there are locals. You've basically said that there have been so many councils and so many communities. The people who we serve who came out and said that they were uncomfortable with this. And this is a key example of devolution of power, limited government, where we listened and we said, oh, I get it, I understand. But hey, we've got to build, and we're going to set up the right financial vehicles. We're going to set up the right capacity to do this, so let's build. And you've just said, hey, don't listen to those people. Listen to us. We will tell you how to do it.
That is a very, very unfortunate interpretation of what I've just said, Mahesh. I've been at the front line doing this stuff for the last 6 years, and I would also like you to reflect on the National Party's track record of pushing and ramming through the Super City against all of the protestations from Aucklanders.
We're very nearly out of time. Very nearly out of time. Thank you, everyone. I just think we need to touch on, I think we can all agree that Queen Street, or at least a large part of it, is a bit shit at the moment. I think we can agree on that.
It's a solution nobody likes.
Well, what is if each of you, I'd just like to hear from you one thought. No one is going to, there's no silver bullet, right? Mm-hmm. But what is the one thing you think that we could do, that you could do, that you could encourage happening as an Auckland Central MP? Whether it's something that's overseen by the council or it's a central government thing, what's the one thing that you can do that can just shift the dial on Queen Street?
For me, it's crime, right? It's crime.
What's the thing?
It's a police station downtown.
Okay.
Right. And I'll add one more. It's to set up a strong green tech hub.
Oscar.
In order to do what Mahesh is saying, we need adequate funding of police resourcing. We didn't see that when they were in government. They closed the Fort Street police station and they cut police funding. We're rolling out safety hubs.
Police funding.
So safety, absolutely, adequate safety.
Chloe.
I mean, if you're talking about safety, then we also need to talk about vibrancy. We need to talk about foot traffic. We need to talk about people wanting to be there and meandering along and exploring places and spaces. So it's conversations that I've already had with Mayor Wayne Brown around, for example, rates for vacancy, or looking at Christchurch, where after the earthquake they instituted Gap Filler, which was about connecting the dots with peppercorn rent and short-term leases to fill commercial spaces. And I've been talking to Eke Panuku about that with their operationalisation of CCMP.
Chloe, Oscar, Mahesh, I wish we had more time. I wish we had more time for me to leave the room and let you get on with it. Thank you.
That was interesting.
Thank you for indulging us all on that.
Cheers,
People seem to enjoy it. Good luck for all of you for the rest of the campaign.
Kia ora.
In the next hour of this day-long excursion, Green co-leader James Shaw is here, and then we're going to talk to political scientist Lara Greaves, who knows what else might happen. This is your friendly local spin-off election 2023, gone by lunchtime, Megapod. Thanks for listening. There's plenty more where this came from on your Gone By Lunchtime feed. Thanks to Jane, Te Aihe and Samuel and the rest of the team at The Spin-Off for making the Megapod happen.
Kia ora, I'm Duncan Grieve, founder of The Spin-Off. You can help us keep all of The Spin-Off's award-winning journalism free for everybody by becoming a member today at thespinoff.co.nz/donate.
Kia ora e te iwi, Te Aihe Butler here, podcast manager at The Spin-Off. If you enjoy listening to our podcasts, consider supporting our mahi by signing up to become a Spin-Off member at thespinoff.co.nz/donate. The Spin-Off Podcast Network.